Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Baer. I'm joined today by the notorious and infamous Marc Glimcher, who's a partner and owner of the Pace Gallery, which operates in about 5 locations in New York.
Untitled.
Untitled.
That's my title.
Oh, he has no title. No. He's just Mr. Glimcher to me. And they have 3 or 4 locations in New York for their main gallery, Beijing, several places in London, not to mention relationships with Pace Editions, Pace Primitive, and he's better known probably for his scientific career and also as a winning captain of the America's Cup. So if you have any sailing questions. So we're going to talk for about 20 minutes about this notion of the empire in various forms, and then we're going to open it up to questions later on.
Okay, that's Josh Baer.
That'd be me.
I want to introduce Josh. I don't know if you know. Josh Baer, pundit, art advisor, publisher, writer, and I can describe you as a gadfly / good guy, which is a very rare thing to put together, you know. And golf. What do you call it? Golf person? Golfer, right? Golfer.
Nut.
Golfer. Yeah.
So, you know, Marc, you and I talked about these mega galleries, and I think the number one thing that's going around as the big dialogue in the art fair. Hi, Georgina. You were the one to actually put it into print, so now we're able to talk about it because it's in print rather than having to be quiet, is the notion of artists at major galleries and now maybe switching galleries or not. So we have the big story is Jeff Koons going from Gagosian Gallery to David Zwirner Gallery. What can big galleries provide? What's going on? What might be the thinking there? You're not in that deal. Can you guess what could be going on?
We at the Zwirner Gallery just want to say we have no... Oh, sorry. Is there a rewind button here?
Yes.
In case I get the sign from my wife. No, it is a very interesting phenomenon. We've seen galleries grow, and we have seen the emergence of a handful of very large galleries. I want to say that it didn't happen yesterday. It has been going on for some time. Happily, my father's not here. He always will say to me, before you came around, you know, we just a little mom and pop shop. Of course, when I joined the gallery in '85, it was hardly a mom and pop shop. It was already 40 employees, which was unprecedented. He has no memory of this, of course. But so it has been happening for some time, but we've definitely in the last 10 years seen this acceleration. And the galleries have emerged that, I like to characterize them. They have over 100 employees. They have multiple locations. They have 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 artists that they either represent or that they contend that they represent. And that is really a new form. It is something that we haven't seen. On the other hand, there are smaller galleries that are attempting to replicate this model, which is a word that no one in the art world would ever have known 10 years ago. But it's very important to know that there are a whole other population of galleries doing the opposite, resisting that direction very strongly, not just older galleries.
They're resisting it, you think, because they don't believe in it, or because they recognize, well, I wouldn't be good at that game, or I don't like to fly so much, or alternatively, and hopefully, because the artists I work with don't fit that model.
Yes.
Yes.
Those are all good. Those are all good ones.
So the big model, this big empire, if I was going to say is it good or bad, you would say it's both, depending upon.
Okay. Well, the only interesting answer is that it's bad. So I'm actually as we.
So what you've done is bad too.
Yes. Wait a minute.
Okay.
Hold on there. There is something bad going on in this sort of phenomenon. It is first and foremost a phenomenon, meaning that the gallery owners didn't create it. That amongst the population of gallery owners, there were individuals who were predisposed to a kind of ambition, to a lot of different kinds of desires, but very, very strong motivation in different forms. And something happened in the world to cause this to occur. So first and foremost, it's coming from an external phenomenon. And that phenomenon is that more people are persuaded by what artists of their age, their generation, are doing. And that is the most significant change that has occurred. Very few people are persuaded by what the artists of their generation are doing through the ages. The old art is great and the new art is crap, and that's the way it's been, and that's like how it's always been. Somehow, the art lovers, collectors, the public, caught up with the artists, at least somewhat, so that the population of people who are interested has exploded.
Is that because there's technology that's able to communicate information so much quicker? So if you're in Stuttgart, you can know what's going on in Japan, and you can keep track of all this kind of, you don't have to wait 6 months to find out what, Art News wrote about a show.
For sure, you can, the information age is a big part of that. But there's something else that's happening. There's some kind of breakthrough through all of the, obviously this topic has a lot of there are people who are sad about it, angry about it, that there's a sort of a jaded feeling, oh, what's happening to the art world, the front page of the, art newspaper, time is coming, reckoning is coming. But there is something else that is amazing that happened, which is that I started to go to the Museum of Modern Art with people who knew nothing really about art and sit down in front of the Pollock and not have to say to them, wait, just look at it, stop getting so angry. I got to stop doing that. And I got to stop doing that, I think, about 20 years earlier than I should have, if history's any gauge. And people are able to see, and I don't mean to oversimplify it, but there is the abstraction of reality, of existence, whatever it is that the artist did, it has become visible to people a lot sooner than we think. Okay, that was my philosophical pitch for the whole thing. You're not buying it.
No, I'm just hoping for translation
Anyway.
from somebody out here. All those who follow that, raise your hand.
There
good.
you go.
We'll talk to you later.
They're good. My people all got it because they've been indoctrinated already. Anyway, so the point is, that's not the point. The point is that you have this huge population of people interested in art for whatever reason. The answer is, I don't know why. Some very intelligent person can figure that out. Then you have, that's the fuel for a small number of people to create these galleries. And I point out that these galleries are not the creation of a committee, except for ours. They're the creation, they're the creation of some individual. Okay, now we've talked about these galleries, and I know all these guys, they're all friends. Larry and David and Ivan Worth and
Jay Joplin.
Who was the other guy?
There's like five.
Jay Joplin,
We've identified five
Zwerner,
basic
right.
ones.
And there is something about those individuals, something really different. They're all quite different, but they're all, these are sort of freaks. These people,
Well, they're ambitious and they're easily bored. So
yeah, and
it's fun to start new things. And then this model created, the old model was a gallery, had 10 or 15 artists. The dealer spoke to every artist every day. They would talk about what their slide sheets looked like, and then occasionally someone would walk in and buy something.
Right.
Doesn't work like that anymore.
And my father was always fond of saying there were 25 contemporary art collectors. In 1960, when he started, there were 25 collectors, and they would hopefully walk into the place in Boston and buy something. And if they bought a Warhol Maryland for $225, we would eat for that week because we got $90. So I remember it very well. But anyway, so now obviously we do see, but back to the bad part.
Well, is art being created by too many artists to fit this model of, oh my God? I mean, in one sense, the ultimate gesture was Damien Hirst doing 11 simultaneous shows around the world. And in many ways, Damien is the greatest marketer of all times. He makes the ultimate statement, and it worked for him because he's like a unique person of seeing how this fits, and his work fit that mode. But now, are too many people trying to play by that playbook and to become him? That would be the bad, right?
Yeah, well, it worked for him if he's happy. I don't know him, so I mean I can't say either way. But you know, when I say there are different motivations and different people doing this, I think that is very key. You know, people think of this as being driven by greed, and greed is certainly a part of it. But you know, greed, there are other businesses to get into if you are being driven by greed. There's a more of a power thing going on here. But what we see now is we do see the result of all of this, which is we see that the artists, in some cases, the artists and the galleries and the collectors are all falling into line. They are all
They've all drunk the Kool-Aid.
Right. They all drank the Kool-Aid. You know, when we would get something great from Lucas Samaras, he would create the photo transformations in the early 70s. Everybody wanted them. So what Lucas did is he stopped making them immediately. And the collectors can do the same thing. Now what we have is an extended time period through economic hardship where the collectors, some body of collectors are agreeing they all need the same thing. The artists are agreeing they're going to produce the necessary supply for that demand. Michael Govan here said to me a couple of years ago when things were getting very strange, he said, it's just...
Michael being the director of the LA County Museum.
Exactly. And he said, overproduction. Talking about what's going on in art. He said, what's going on in art is overproduction. The rest of it is what always goes on in art. But the overproduction is new. I think that if one saw the number of works that were created by artists, they're highly in demand, that the foyers in New York City are crying out for the same painting in every
But
foyer.
Mark, if you work with 100 artists,
Yes.
can't you slow the machine down by saying, you have 5 galleries, that's,
The artist,
that can,
the
can
artist
work to
slows-
the extent of like, we can also deal with a slower production because we don't need a show from them every year. When you had 10 artists in one gallery and 10 shows a year, they kind of had to do a show every year. In the same way, can't this system accommodate the slow burn as well as the...
Well, I'm sure that it can, Josh.
I mean, don't you must argue that,
Absolutely. But the issue here is not about what it can accommodate, but that there is a trend that is seeing an opportunity, and that it is filling into that opportunity. It is creating a mechanism that can possibly, how do you distribute 1,000 works by an artist? And this is something that I only recently learned about, that there are actually some cases where there's 1,000 pieces created in a year. How do you do it? You need your empire. You to just simply push that distribution.
So there's a lot of empires. There's the empire of the artist, who's got his studio set up, 20,000 square feet, 14 employees. So they have their own empires. And then you have the mega dealers their empires. And the other big empire that we didn't mention is the auction houses. They've decided, wait a second, this is a good game. We already have all these locations, and we already have all these people, and we'll sell anything. So they're sort of like, we didn't address them. They're pretty good emperors.
Yeah, I mean, you can, this is a vacuum, and it is very easy to get sucked into this vacuum if you're in this power position. And when the opportunity comes that everybody wants this work, somebody, there has traditionally been a contradiction. We are trying to sell art all the time. Art dealers are trying to sell. We love it. When we sell something, it's an incredible feeling. When the artist sells something, it's an incredible feeling. But wait, the artist is trying to make the work uncorrupted by anything except their own, artistic aims. That's a contradiction. That contradiction is at the core of art. There is no art without that contradiction. I want to make something of value. I don't want anybody to tell me what to do, but I also would like you to trade in, money in exchange for this thing
And fame.
that I made.
And fame.
I want it. I want all these different things. The struggle, that is art. And that is an art gallery. Now, when we sit down and say, okay, we need 1,000 of these, we need to order them up, and we have, 12 months to do it, and we go from contradiction to just a lie.
Or just pure complicity.
Absolutely, just so that's, without that contradiction, the art will lose its spark that makes it art.
So the artists are ultimately in charge of this. If the artists didn't want to play by this game, how many people here are artists in this room?
It's all your fault.
Okay. How many of you, most people think I'd like to play in that game, but, if the artist didn't want to play that game, it wouldn't happen, right?
No artist thinks they want to play that game, and no artist thinks they are playing that game. And
Because they're
in the
special.
dark of night, when they feel like they are, there's a crisis, and those artists then have. Look, that's Rembrandt had that whole that experience.
So why can't we move to this new model where artists are like sports figures? It's like we're free agents, and I'm going to have an agent, and every year I'm going to negotiate a new contract, and I'm going to sign up with this gallery or that gallery, signing bonus, performance clauses, and all that. And then at the end of that 1 or 3 years period, then we pull back and see if the Yankees want to sign us, or if we're doing better in a small market with the Green Bay Packers. And are we moving to that where it's a
Well, maybe. Not that is necessarily going to be any better. But that happened in the movie business, of course. The studios were like the galleries are now. They represented the artists. They made the movies. They distributed the movies. And Congress, where's the rewind button? Did I say Congress? Because we're not talking about Congress. Congress smashed the movie business, and that is when the agency business was born.
well, you couldn't be both a manager and an agent. So,
Couldn't be a studio and an agent. You had to be across the table from the talent. So, is that going to happen or not? That may well happen. But the answer to your question is that this is all okay. You can have all of these things. You can have these artists moving towards this precipice, and the galleries. And they will have to either go over or move back. Nothing is going to stop the art from being made. It's the one thing we don't have to worry about is the art. In a recession, everything gets worse except the art, which gets better. And
so unfortunately, the art recession was really short.
that's the problem. That is the problem.
That's the problem. That no
not
longer
enough
could you
suffering.
say, I want to make a 20-foot golden phallus with diamonds, and
Right.
somebody say, okay, good idea. And there you go. And when times are tough, you better be convinced on that.
The galleries are way too big a deal. Like, the galleries, who cares, you know, about the gallery?
Well, I will
The
say before
gallery
we
is the
open to
star,
question,
you know?
is there's a big controversy going around. I'm part of it too. And like, why is the media paying so much attention to all of this in terms of the money part? And why are art critics, who's supposed to be writing about the art, paying so much attention to the art market? It's like, it's doing its thing, but the art is doing its own thing, right?
Nobody wants to get left behind from a story. It's so unbelievable that the world should be in distress and that the art market isn't in distress. I'll tell you a little secret about the art market. Please, let's keep it just here, okay? The art market has more distress in it than anybody realizes, okay?
If it doesn't have distress, it has stress.
It has tons of stress, okay? And most art that is for sale does not sell. The vast majority, okay? And art galleries are full of people who try to sell art and can't, except that 10th time or that 100th time. It's very hard to sell art. You know, the collectors say it's very easy to buy art, but it's very hard to sell it. It's same for the art galleries. There's plenty of stress. The art market doesn't exist. The art market is a classic fractal complex equation, meaning that if you start with the art market, you can start subdividing it. Oh, modern versus contemporary. Then let's divide it between early contemporary, late. Then let's divide it between people who make lots, high production, lots of art, and people who make just a few things, painters and sculptors, until you get down to the individual artist. And when you do, you see that that individual artist has all the characteristics of a market. And when you then get down to the individual artworks, a Picasso from the 30s, from 1932 versus 1938, those have the characteristics of an individual market. So if you have this thing, which is actually made up of millions of microscopic markets, it is incredibly resilient. There is no other market like that, of uniques, where there are actual analyses and people thinking about what's valuable down to these tiny grains. This makes the art market very hard to hurt.
That's a good spot to open up for questions. Do we have any questions? We have a microphone if somebody has a question. Hang on for the mic, if you could, 1 second.
Are you as a gallerist, are you as a gallerist afraid that art will lose value because of these big empires and the overproduction?
What will happen to the value? That the value?
Go down.
Am I afraid of that? You know, I'm afraid of that like I'm afraid of death. I know what's going to happen. So it's really not worth being afraid of. You know, it's just, it happens to every artist.
Is that
And yes, and there is some price to pay. They already have been paying the price, these artists.
Do we have another question? No? Oh, I have a question there.
Hi. What role would you say art fairs play in this whole age of empires? Has art fairs, people say there are too many art fairs now, and then you have these huge big players like Basel and Frieze, and then you have the small satellite fairs. And is this a phenomena, do you see it as related to this whole?
It's been going on for 10 years, the event-driven, and for some people it's fun. Get on your private plane, go over to Paris for the day, and then have lunch at this.
Aren't you having fun?
You know, and it seems to be a great resource for information. But in fact, it's impossible to get information because there are too many images. And for everybody who's interested in being at Basel, there's some guy saying, wow, the Pulse Art Fair is going. I can't wait to go there. I don't know who those people are. But there's somebody saying, Untitled, that's my thing. I'm coming to. It's like there's so many people that have different interests that it caters to that. But as I like to say, and people have been in my talks before, it encourages people to be over-informed but undereducated. Because obviously it's not a very good way to look at art. Artists don't like to do it, except I'm sure your artists in your gallery don't like to be at the art fair except when they're not at the art fair.
Oh,
then
yeah.
there's like, where's my work?
No one wants to be left out of an art fair. You know, I would take that opportunity to say one thing. The art world, like everything else, is like the African savannah. You know, the lion tears this antelope apart, then there's no antelope left, then the lions are starving, and it isn't like a pretty picture. It's a mess. And, it's just, we do what we do. We have to be very careful about judging and saying it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. Art fairs, what they do is they make you take a little snapshot, and the way that the artist actually makes the art is no longer visible as it is in an exhibition. Okay, so that's true, and everyone sort of adapts to that. Everyone will adapt to it. The art fairs are an enormous part of what it is to be an artist, a gallery. There are many galleries here where the art fair is 90%.
But it's
Of
self-perpetuating.
their income.
You don't have to worry as the Pace Gallery about getting into any art fair in the world. If you want to be in, you're in. But if you're a smaller gallery, and how many people here work for galleries or might want to have a gallery, there's a few. If you don't get in, it's consequential to a magnitude of, Richter-like scale. Your artists are like, why aren't you in this? I'll go to another gallery. It's very self-fulfilling, so it rewards the existing power, and it punishes the people who are trying to make it in. So it's insidious in a certain way that and you probably lose sight a little bit of that because you don't have to struggle with whether you'll be accepted at Basel or Maastricht or FIAC or Frieze.
Right.
You're there. You could argue you paid the dues, but it's hard for this process. So it's a
big deal.
It's a big deal that people are playing for big stakes.
And so it drives towards the idea of these giant galleries, trying to be one of these galleries, and then you're part of this system. You're part of the art fair system. The oversimplification of things, and it is, but ultimately, there's some point at which your drive to success will bump into an artist's drive to create art. And if it bumps in the wrong way, it doesn't matter. You're going to lose your artist. I'm not alluding to anything at all.
No.
Yeah.
So we have time. One more question, maybe, or we have a few hands. We have 4 hands, so okay. We'll start this way. Okay.
Can you stay? This is more of a comment than a question. When you were saying that this roughly started 10 years ago, would you attribute it to the financial bubble, all the money coming into the marketplace, people were buying artwork, the demand, these fairs started, it's like real estate, and then it's just growing and growing and growing, and then everything bursts, and you just have more, people are just running at everything.
Yeah, we had a major inflection point in 2003 where things changed radically. We also had a moment in 1998 when everything went to hell, which nobody talks about. Our art galleries really suffered. I remember selling a Koons ball tank for $100,000 and thinking.
But I think the fact that you have people, it's now global, and if you live in Singapore, how do I get information? And if you live in New York, how do I get all the information? That's sort of a natural thing about technology, about the ability to travel so much more easily, and it sort of had to happen that way to serve so many needs in an efficient way. So it's an efficiency more than a value. I wouldn't put value good, bad, or evil. It's just a sort of necessary phenomenon. Georgina, did you have a question?
Yes, I'd be interested if you'd come back to the subject of artists' agents and artists moving between galleries, which is having more and more. I'd be really interested if doesn't make the empire a bit more fragile, no longer having the faithfulness of the artist that you used to have.
The empire is very fragile. All of these are extremely fragile. They exist at the pleasure of the artists and the collectors, and they're much more fragile than the art market. And any kind of serious shift, and the shift just has to take place in sort of the collective minds of the artist community. And it can simply be, uninteresting to function that way.
One more question, and then we'll have to get ready for the next group that's coming in.
Thanks, Kurt.
Yeah, I know. We could go all day.
Hi, do you think online platforms for selling art are going to play a bigger role in the market?
No,
No.
It can't be cracked, the internet for art?
no.
This is a weird thing.
Do you work for Artsy?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Sorry.
Of
Yes,
course, it's
yes,
the future.
Yes,
Completely.
yes.
The Bear Fax does take advertising.
Yes,
We're
yes.
Happy to help you there.
Absolutely. It's really hard, to look at art. It is hard to look at a picture of art. That has had a huge effect on the way artists make their art. So it can be seen in a picture. They don't realize they're doing it, but all of us, we've just got this Rothko family gave us a Rothko, by the way, if anyone's interested, to sell, and dark green and dark blue. It's beautiful. It can't be photographed. And even a Rothko, it's hard to get somebody to say to somebody, no, I'm not sending you a picture of it. Come on in and look at it. So they want to see the picture, but there are real limits to that experience, and it's complicated.
I think we have to end there. Thank you, Mark. Thank you,
Josh.
Thank you, audience.